1930, there were 6 million farms in America. Today, that number has plummeted to 1.8 million. And now 85% of the beef in America is controlled by just 4 companies. That means fewer farmers have to produce more food, thus incentivizing them to produce a high quantity of food instead of high quality food. Plus, if something goes wrong, the 98% of us that don't grow food are at risk of starving. Yikes, that's dark. Let's go darker. A few very wealthy companies have control over all the food. And if North Korea has taught us anything, a centralized food supply can accidentally or intentionally kill a lot of people. The bottom line is this: you can't wait until hits the fan to figure out what your family's going to eat, but all hope is not lost. Here's the plan. It's called From the Farm, an industry-disrupting platform that directly connects customers and local farmers with a website that's as easy to use as Airbnb. From the Farm gives you fresher, higher quality foods, strengthens communities, and helps small farmers not only survive, but thrive. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
What's up, Shad?
Hey, AJ, how are you?
I'm good, brother. Good. Excited to have you on. It's been a long time coming, I feel.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. I have been super impressed with your knowledge and your expertise and your just grind to get in there and change the way we have been producing. And just really, honestly, I think one of the most calming things about you, AJ, is your respect for liberty and freedom, and your acknowledgement that matters probably first and foremost. And I love that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that intro to my own show, but brother, that means a lot to me. I'm going to give you one now because I want people to know. So you don't know this, but I consider you one of my mentors.
Oh my gosh!
As I was trying to figure out what was what, when this became very clear on my radar that our food system, our freedom, our sovereignty is in big trouble. That wake up happened before COVID, but COVID was like, okay, it's go time.
Yeah.
And that's when I first saw one of your videos sometime around that time. Mm-hmm. And I never knew I'd meet you, but I'm like, man, this guy's saying what I've been worrying about,
Sure.
And then I meet you at RCAF a few years later. I think our first RCAF was 2022. Probably. Maybe 23. So anyway, that's when I first got to meet you. And I think I said it there. I got to speak on the RCAF stage at one point.
Yes.
But my job is to try to support agriculture from the consumer on the urban side to help them connect to the rural side where the food is produced. Right. And so there's a lot to cover in that. That's pork, that's chicken, that's beef, that's, regenerative agriculture or corn and grain finish. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to distill this down. And so I've met some incredible people in my life in this journey that are experts in their area. And you've been one of them because your message was, exactly what myself and many others were feeling. And you do it for a living.
Go ahead.
I said, and you do it for a living. Like you're out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate those comments, AJ. One of the things that really, there was something that happened in my life that affected our family back in 1999. And it was one of the very first of its kind in what we now call a public-private partnership, where an extreme environmental organization teamed up and partnered with a state governmental organization and seized land from my family. And I knew then that was really my wake-up call to how much corruption really is intertwined into these bureaucracies. And I thought that the bridge between those bureaucracies and the environmental organizations was a strange one at the time. And so as we roll on and move up into about 2010, and I started seeing a lot more about the global roundtables. You know, there's a global roundtable for sustainable soy, for sustainable beef, for all kinds of products. And I knew that the dimension of globalism was not probably a good thing, because call it what you will, but I'm a nationalist. I think my country must come first. And so when I started seeing this move to a global roundtable for sustainable beef and started really digging deeply into it, it opened my eyes and kind of put the fear in me that we were headed to an era of control. And of course, all of those things started happening. It became very clear to me, not to everybody, but clear to me because of my past experience, that we were on a road to something very dangerous. And so in April of 2020, I was out in the field putting up hay. We were stacking grass hay, and we all had been through, you know, put your mask on.
Yep.
Don't gather with your friends. Separate yourselves if you go to church, but don't go to church. But then you can go buy alcohol and cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
It all didn't make sense to me, but the very first time I heard that, put your mask on and don't gather with your people, I knew it was an attack on the Constitution and an attack on freedom, and it wasn't about a disease. So what happened during that period was, as we saw this move to destroy our food crops, right? We have starving people all over America, homeless people, and all over the world. And the American leadership is telling us to plow under our fruits and vegetables, kill our chickens, and euthanize our hogs.
Yeah.
And so with my memory of what my dad came from, my dad grew up in the 1940s and 50s. He was fresh off the Depression. And in the 30s and 1950s, he told me about how the federal government came out to their ranches due to drought and disease, dug a hole and shot cattle, right? So on this particular day back in April of 2020, every producer in the United States gets this email from the federal government saying, we're going to send teams out to help with the alternative marketing and or disposal of your market ready beef. Now, it didn't say market ready beef, but it said market ready animals. Well, I knew what they were alluding to, that it was the beef, because COVID had shut down, supposedly COVID had shut down these massive kill plants like JBS, Tyson, and there was nobody going to work.
Yep.
And so these cattle were backing up, and cattle are obviously not like chickens and hogs and fruits and vegetables where they grow quickly and we can replace them. Cattle take too long to do that. So I knew that there was something underlying there, and it kind of made me mad. And I did this video off the cuff. I did not really know what going viral meant at the time. I'm too old for all that stuff. But it did go viral, and it really changed. I believe that video really changed the way the consumer perceived his food supply and how the producer was going to be inhibited from producing. And I thought it was very important that we acknowledge that.
Yeah. Let me play this clip. This is, you know, some folks watching may remember this for sure, because it did go viral. It got the reach it needed and deserved.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, this is Shad Sullivan coming to you from the headwaters of Bitter Creek, Archer County, North Texas. We have to talk. State officials will be assisting to help identify potential alternative markets if a producer is unable to move animals, and if necessary, advise and assist on depopulation and disposal methods. Ladies and
So,
and I was reading right from the script on that.
yeah, I could tell you looked right at it and said word for word. Yeah, I mean, a lot of us became I got some comments that I haven't seen. A lot of us became very aware of these issues during COVID, and you got to start being prepared for that earlier on when your family was under attack for private property rights and all these other
Sure.
things. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really a move that I did not create. That it must have been God inspired, because that day, within 10 minutes, I was getting messages from all over the place, and people were saying, this is going viral, what's going on? And in about 1 hour, I literally got a call from now Representative Ronnie Jackson, who was President Trump's doctor at the time, which also he was also Obama and Bush's doctor, but he was in the Oval Office with President Trump when he called me, and he said, we know that these things have been happening, that you guys are hurting and suffering, and we need to get this food system moving, right? Because, man, nobody was working. There was no money flowing. It was really, really a wreck. And nobody knew what to do. And the thing that really, made me mad about that day, the maddest probably, is you had the federal government telling us that we were going to help depopulate our herds. And at the same time, it was the very first day that we imported beef from Namibia, of all places.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that just set me off the wrong way. And we've got during that week, AJ, we had bread lines longer than we had during the Great Depression. And it was just a culmination of emotions and hard work. And we're out there trying to keep this thing going. And I just said to myself, I don't know, I didn't do it on purpose. I did it out of emotion, but I do believe that it was God inspired for the nation to awaken to the dangers of a centralized food supply system. And I do believe that it did stop. I know, the next day, President Trump came out with an executive order to make sure those plants stayed open in harvesting those cattle. I know that's the reason why, was because of that video. And I just think that it woke up the consumer to the importance of their food supply.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then they're seeing it in real time, limited numbers on the shelves, if there was anything in your shelf, depending on where you lived. I mean, we really got to see that we're in trouble. We have farmed out our sustenance, our most important basic human need. We just farmed it out. We've been distracted by everything else at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I mean,
well, and on top of that, you're exactly right. We have farmed it out. We're going to ask Namibia to import grass-fed beef into the United States, while they're telling us that we're going to help euthanize your herds. And at the same time, all of us ranchers are like, what are we going to do? Because this isn't just about, the food supply was the issue that awoken the consumer to the importance. But what this was about for farmers and ranchers was a property rights issue, because once you start getting the government saying, well, we're going to pay you to euthanize your way of making a living because it's unmarketable, we got real problems, because then that flows down to the land itself. And I think that was where the recognition needed to be.
Yeah. So just real quick, I don't know that anybody's listening to this type of conversation wouldn't know this, but when those plants closed, everything in the in our big food system, 80% of the meat that we consume comes out of less than 40 slaughterhouses, which means it's all by the big four. So our entire food system is built in a just-in-time maximum efficiency process to churn this out and to make revenue. That's why they're trying to get cattle fatter quicker. And they have rail times, like everything is for just in time to maximize revenue. Now, when you shut down a plant that does 6,000 head a day, and then you shut down multiple of those, you create this major backlog, because if there's 6,000 head today being processed, that means there's 6,000 tomorrow that are waiting to come in.
Correct.
And then and it goes all the way down into the feedlots. You have pens that are like, these guys are going to be finished just in time to go right into the facility. when you put a kink in that at almost any level, it's going to cause a problem. But now at this level where the processing is going through so few slaughterhouses, it just jammed everything up. So we would call our local slaughter to get a processing date. It was 1.5 years because nobody's going to feed an animal when it's can't keep being fed. It's got to be processed. And so
it's got to go.
And it is cheaper to store it frozen than it is on 4 hooves and have to care for it.
Well, and one of the downhill slides on the bottom of that was that these people who were feeding these cattle that needed to go could not get a bid on these cattle for months at a time. And so they were backing up. And I mean, it was a true train wreck. And, you know, you could have walked into any store. I walked into my local grocery store, United, up here in Wichita Falls, Texas, at like 10 in the morning. I remember having a doctor's appointment, and I went in there, and the meat shelf was totally empty.
Yeah.
And so I grabbed the guy and I said, what's the story here? And he said, we're only getting one shipment of beef a day. It comes in at 5:30 in the morning, and by 6:30 it's gone. And that was really worrisome. And then I later find out that they restock these shelves in these bigger cities 3 times a day, AJ. Wow. I mean, it is a volume game, right? Yeah. And that is why the concentration is so dangerous, because you have four mega companies, corporations, 2 of which are foreign owned, controlling that much volume, and it depletes the choices for the consumer. And then you had this issue where all of us had cattle that we could, we're not going to starve because we have access to the beef, right? But then you couldn't get the beef. You couldn't get the beef in your local packing plants because there aren't enough packing plants, right? Yeah. So this is, I put this on the back of Congress. They've allowed these acquisitions and mergers to really put our food sovereignty and food safety into a hell of a bind.
Yeah. We launched a direct-to-consumer beef label, my cousin and I, for his ranch in 2019. Business was growing. Butcher Box really paved the way for e-commerce, home direct beef on subscription. They really opened that consumer demand, I feel, in that space, was one of the leaders. Mm-hmm. And so we started doing subscriptions direct to consumer, and business was going really well. We were increasing the number of kills monthly because consumers were already starting to want to know, for health reasons, where their beef was coming from.
Sure.
And then when COVID hit, we drove to every slaughterhouse in the state of Utah just trying to squeeze in to keep our customers fed, and then to feed a growing demand, because we weren't making money staying where we were at. We were not even covering costs yet. But it was growing. We could see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then we couldn't get processing. So we ended up shutting that down because it couldn't work. We could not get processing even though the customer demand was there. And so, the danger of centralization. And we went off the rails during COVID. We're not even fully back on yet.
Yeah.
And then you add on top of it cattle numbers the way they are.
Right. No, I mean, we're in a very, very precarious position. And it started right there during COVID. And one word that always comes to mind, in what we're talking about today, you were talking about access to the ability to get those cattle processed. Yep. It wasn't there. There wasn't enough of them. And that has been the greatest issue. And it's not a Republican Democrat issue. It's an American issue. This is something both parties should agree on, that centralization is very dangerous. And listen, I know it sounds radical, AJ, to say that millions can starve. I mean, that was the tagline for my interview with who was it? Glenn Beck. And I thought at the moment, I'm like, man, I didn't really say that. But the truth is I've heard you say it too.
Yeah.
Nobody understands that centralization has starved more people.
Yep.
And what is centralization? It's an oligarchy. It's power by a few, and they can control that flow. They can control the money flow. They control the power flow. They control the processing flow. And there is nothing more dangerous. I mean, we have to take back, and that was one of my arguments when I sat on the USMCA panel in Washington, D.C. We have to take back our sovereignty, and Mexico has to take back their own sovereignty, and then we can work together.
Yeah.
Right. But understanding that our sovereignty is the utmost important is very crucial.
Yeah, we can't be codependent.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, this book I reference it all the time. This is Red Famine. This is what happened in Ukraine during what they called the Holodomor.
Right.
And that was in the 1943, I think, or 36. But millions of people. And when you think that 80% of the meat we consume goes through a handful of processing facilities, but then, okay, so you and I are on the same page there. We have to take, actually, somebody asked this question. It was perfect. How decentralized do you think we should be? and actually, I think when it comes to our food, it should be the most decentralized. It should be a fair and free market, an open market. Adults should have the right to buy, anybody should have the right to buy food as they see fit. Now, the consumer should become educated on what to ask. But there should be nothing blocking me from going to my neighbor who's raising food and having zero problem doing commerce. I believe in that level of decentralization.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. The level of decentralization of what we need is the freedom of choice, number one.
Yep.
The consumer deserves to know what he or she is buying, and they have to have that choice. And so that's the first and foremost important thing to decentralization. Number two is we've got to make sure that there is an even playing field. And when there is an even playing field, that allows the consumer a greater choice, right? Not only the choice they want, but it allows the spreading out of the greater choice. And with the Mayhaw movement, I think that the time is right for that. I mean, we know that these people, these mega corporations we've been talking about, they've not been the most upstanding citizens. I mean, just this year, Tyson, how many settlements has Tyson settled with just in 2025? A bunch,
billions.
And people need to understand that it's not that we don't need them. We do need them, but we need more of them. And we need the power to be spread out. That's the key, because, just like in every industry or every government organization, when the power is centralized or in a conglomerate, it becomes corrupt. And that's exactly what we've seen with these corporations and mega companies. I mean, they control every aspect of our life. Look what we've been putting in. And I'm thankful for you for, bringing all of this to light. Is taking an army of us freedom fighters, but look at the stuff we've been putting into our bodies. I mean, we wonder why, you look around, and I can remember, I look at some of these pictures from the 1970s, people are healthy, 60s, people are healthy. And now you walk down the street and people have legs this big. And the reason they have legs this big is because we've put all this crappy food in us that doesn't belong in us. And our bodies can't get rid of the toxins that come along with it, right? Because it's so what would you call it? Infested with all of these things that shouldn't be in our bodies. And that is a result of the concentration, because you talked about it already today. It's about efficiency, and it's about volume. It's volume and efficiency. The faster, and the faster we can do it, the more money we can make. And I specifically remember, I was in college. I'm a lot older than you. I was in college in 1992. And I remember one of my food science professors at my university. And he said, when we went in and I didn't know no different, AJ, but his comments every day were, it's all about shelf life. It's all about shelf life. It's all about shelf life. And now I have learned, you know, and I actually knew it already from my folks, because we grew everything we ate and we preserved everything we ate. And my mom always said, if it don't rot, we don't want to eat it. Right?
Yeah.
And now you buy a loaf of bread and shoot, it'll be on the shelf for 6 weeks before anything happens.
Yeah. It's a surprise if something rots and it makes you mad if it rots now. Exactly. I mean, really, something goes rotten. You're like, oh, I just bought this. It's already rotten.
Yep.
That's the natural state of things. They should rot.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. So then, I mean, all of this kind of leads us into where the momentum started, and some of the things that, I mean, what has to happen is the freedom of choice, and that goes for the producer too. The freedom of choice to produce how you see fit on your land, in your context, with your animals. You don't need anybody breathing down your neck to do that.
And because of that, that allows for the consumer to create the marketplace, which in turn is the level playing field.
Yeah. That's what From the Farm is. God called us all to certain things during COVID. And it was plain as day. That was him calling.
Absolutely.
And it was, you have to have a competitive marketplace, because that's what everybody was telling me. There's no level playing field in the marketplace. Does a direct to consumer platform serve everybody? Heck no. There's, you know, some people finishing 6,000 head in their lot. They're probably not selling all those direct to consumer. They need those wholesale markets, but 86% of the producers in our nation are 350,000 in revenue or less. So what those folks do, they don't produce enough to go wholesale in many cases.
Sure.
They need the full retail dollar.
Sure.
They have nowhere to go.
Right.
I mean, you got Facebook Marketplace. If you can, I mean, we sold on Facebook Marketplace, but you had to almost type in code for whoever was blocking you from selling food. They wouldn't let us sell it. It was a nightmare. So anyway, that was our calling. Get into something that actually makes a difference. Everybody's telling you the competitive marketplace, so build one. I went on a rant there, Shad, and I think I lost you. Well, while waiting for Shad to come back, that 2020 woke a lot of people up and let us know that we were in trouble. And I've learned over the last 6 years working on From the Farm and then getting involved in policy, I've met hundreds of people that are as committed and dedicated as Shad is in their own sphere of influence. And together, everybody's working on, Shad's frozen. He'll be back here in a second, I think. But together, everybody's been working on, let me just text him real quick. Oh, there we go. You're back. You got a connection issue or something.
Yeah.
There you are. I think you're coming back. Yeah, you're back. Perfect.
I don't know what happened. Everything just went away.
Yeah. Well, I was just kind of wrapping up and saying that everybody that's been working on this since COVID in different circles have started to come together with a very similar story, being like, we got to get moving.
Sure.
And each person has kind of got their own lane that they've been really focused on, because the system is so complicated the way it's been
absolutely
done, and navigating the policies and procedure. I mean, it's just so complicated that, like, those who are working on, glyphosate, for example, if that's their focus, I don't have time to get into that, but Kelly can focus on it. If you're working on private property rights, and freedom of choice, I know it's Shad. So there's so many people now that you and I have met that were, I mean, what a blessing. Because in the early days, I'm like, am I the only one? This is way too big.
I totally get it. And one of the most important things that we need to recognize as American citizens, not as a producer or as a consumer,
Yeah.
is that this is all a very diabolical interwoven web.
Yeah.
And these plans have been coming down the pike for many, many years from global authorities or self-selected global authorities. They're really not global authorities, but they've selected themselves to tell you how you're going to produce and tell the consumer how they're going to consume. And we call that sustainable development, right? And so the recognition of this interwoven diabolical web is so important. And I have an actual picture of that exact thing that Andrea Hutchinson gave to me a long time ago. She was a superstar. She was the very first in America to really understand where we were headed. And so when you recognize that, then you can start seeing, even though you're not an expert on every issue, you can start seeing how every issue affects the others. So let's just we're talking about the beef industry. That's my perspective now. So we talked about the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef and those governance issues, ESG. Now we're talking about carbon and methane.
Yeah.
Right. And we're talking about private property rights. And we talk about ENGOs coming in and partnering with government organizations, and they're putting limits on lands. And they're, in Washington State, we have four issues right now we're working on. Montana, South Dakota, we saw with the mods, and they are all interwoven because what we have to understand is this is an ideology. Yes. And this ideology is all about concentration or collectivization. And collectivization is just a nice word for communism. Yep. People like to say, this is social democracy. There's no such thing as democratic socialists. They are communists. Socialism is only voluntary communism. That's all it is. And so once you give those rights up, and it doesn't matter what right we're talking about, 1A, 2A, private property rights, whatever it is. Once you open that door, and people and our trade organizations call it sitting at the table, but once you do that, then that demonic spirit flows in, and that's what it is. Mm-hmm. It flows in and it takes a hold, because they can convince these good people, really good people, that we are not going to feed the planet because of climate change, right? Yeah. Or whatever ideology that they claim is happening, right? Right now it's climate change. And so these people are starting to think like, well, they may be right. And they change the culture, and they change your interior. And that is why, one reason I find it very, very important is, number one, to be faith-based and know where freedom comes from. And it comes from God, right? And number two, it is very important to understand what the Constitution of the United States provides for you as an American citizen. Because, and we see a move to eliminate the Constitution. We've asked the Lord to leave our schools, to leave our lives. He has obliged us. So why wouldn't he? So then the next step is the Constitution, because the Constitution is divinely inspired for the future of our children, right? And so why wouldn't there be an attack on that? And then it flows down into the most important is your right to private property, because it doesn't matter if it's, your reading glasses or your coat, your car, or your land. Your private property allows you to participate in what is supposed to be a level playing field in a marketplace, and put food on the table for your family. With private property, it's the most important aspect from the Constitution, because it gives separation of powers, right? It makes sure that there is resource access to everybody, and it separates the centralized power. And that's why we're seeing these double downs, especially in the Trump administration right now, the second Trump administration. We're seeing double downs by trade organizations, ENGOs, NGOs, government agencies, government holdovers, because they know that, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that President Trump limits their access to communism. He is the one leader that we have had, maybe in the history, or certainly in my life, that will not allow our freedoms to be infringed upon. And they know he stands in the way of that. And if he is able to, help create and support congressional movements that would force long-term sovereignty, they know they have to double down.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely are. I mean, they did it in the first administration too. I mean, but
I think, and in the first administration, he wasn't a politician. He didn't know who was against him. I mean, everybody was against him, but they wanted to be his friend because they wanted to be in there and affect policy. And that wasn't his fault. It was just what it was. But God ordained that time for this time.
That's think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree because my stance is that, and as is yours, our nations live and die based on their success of their agriculture.
Absolutely.
So I see it like no matter what other goal is out there, this one should take precedence, even if that just means knowing where you're getting it or being aware that you're sourcing your food. If that's all the bandwidth you have, but you're intentional about your sourcing. But like I always say, Elon's not going to Mars if his employees are starving to death, because the only thing that's going to be on their mind is where their next meal's coming from.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't matter how grand a plan you have. If our food doesn't show up the way we need it, then it doesn't matter. So
absolutely,
with that, and with this administration now, they've made a lot of announcements of plans to move forward in the next their last 3 years. And hopefully we see them continuing on, because this is really a long-term fix for a long-term problem that you guys have been dealing with for decades. Okay. So we see these announcements coming out on a higher level, because to go into each of them, they're each of their own discussion. But at a high level, I know the answer for myself. I feel like we're finally seeing decisions being made that, while we would all like to see just wiping everything out, when you start knowing how policies and procedures work and how the government works, it can't be done overnight. You know what I mean? They have to start somewhere. And I feel like the meetings we've been able to have with the secretary and others out there, they're actually listening, because then what they're publicly talking about that follows is what the people we've brought to them and have had meetings with them have said. They might just be baby steps, right? Like, we're not seeing MCOOL tomorrow. Should we have MCOOL? Absolutely. Is that a Congress issue that, the secretary can't just change? Well, yeah. If she could, she probably would. But these are things that need to happen. They just take time, right? So as we are right now in the last year, do you feel like we're actually being heard? That they're moving in the right direction as fast as government will allow?
I actually do. And the reason I do is because, we've seen these examples where Hayden and Jack and you went to the White House. I've been able to be in Washington, D.C. a couple of times. These are just common people. But I think the higher portion of this, and the reason, they are actually listening to our message, number one, is because perhaps we have a Secretary of Agriculture who honors the Constitution, believes in freedom and liberty, and understands the importance of the very ground level citizen, right? Yeah. She to me, she doesn't seem like a politician. She seems very common. I can have a conversation with her. I've enjoyed that. And so we have that, and don't think that these major power structures aren't trying to influence that.
Yes.
I mean, they are there, and they are everywhere, all around her. They're all around President Trump. But when you have, and I know this is controversial for me to say, and I love President Trump.
Yeah.
I have great respect for him because I like a person who just says how it is. We don't. I mean, I'm not saying. Listen, I'm that way, and I say a lot of stupid things, and people just forgive me because that's who I am, and they know my heart. And I believe the heart of our president is foundationally a constitutionalist. He's a lover of America, and he understands what makes America work. And why does he understand that? Because he has spent his lifetime in the workplace. I mean, maybe he had a step up. I don't care, but he has certainly got the business experience, positive or negative, success or failure. Those are experiences that we all have to come to who we are now.
Yeah.
Right. And so I believe that's a very important aspect that needs to be recognized. And then with that, he put people that we believe, or I believe, have been freedom fighters on the very ground level into these positions. I mean, I realize that Secretary Noem is not the most popular in South Dakota because of her her work with the Summit Carbon Solutions. That's a big deal on the state and local level, and that she should have known better. But for me, she's made it very clear where America is going to stand right now on this administrative level in her duties. Same thing with Secretary Rollins, Burgum, I believe. I mean, I just think that they've got these people that are none perfect. We're not all going to be perfect ever. I mean, we're all going to make mistakes, but I believe that they have people who love America at the very heart of the administration. And I think that on this high level that you're talking about, AJ, there'll always be some sort of corruption, right?
Yeah.
It's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
But a first step for me looking into that administration is Secretary Rollins, and she calls you on your phone.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Who is this? I mean, that is really ground level. That is truly what I call grassroots. And we have these trade organizations that represent agriculture that claim to be grassroots, and there's nothing grassroots about them. They've been in an office their whole life. They understand nothing about production agriculture. They've never had any skin in the game, which is very, very important this day and age to know at least what these people are going through. You know, our last two secretaries of agriculture, one of them said, get big or get out, you know, and the other one now works for a communist organization that is against the people. I mean, those are the things that have swayed me to like this administration even more. Yeah.
I remember like when I was pretty, leery of the secretary when she was first called. You know, I thought that we would have a much better opportunity with somebody like, Thomas Massey.
Yeah.
And then when I got to meet her and first talked to her before I met her, she was on a call with a bunch of people in agriculture that use social media to educate, and spent the whole hour with us. And not only spend the whole hour with us, when somebody had an issue that was top of mind that came up, she went straight into it, got to work. So I would tell people the only way I would trust this secretary is if I could tell her that the USDA is corrupt, and it is the reason that we're in many of the bad situations we're in. Not giving you the blame, just acknowledge that that's what this agency has become.
Absolutely.
Then I'll trust. Now, I didn't ask her those words for word, but we've had enough conversations now to know, and even just what she's doing, the changes she's making, to know that she knows she took over an organization that put us in a position where 1.8 million farms are feeding, 330 million people, or whatever that number is.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. If you're in charge, you failed miserably. So, absolutely. And then under that is Forest Service, which has a lot to do with ranchers on public land grazing. And so she's able to get to work there. But because this administration is working so closely interagency, we're actually seeing things change in a rapid direction.
Yes.
Where it needs to go. Now,
Yes.
like you said, nobody's perfect. And there are going to be things that even, I don't want to know, truthfully, because I don't want to, I'm too busy. So don't tell me. I just know there's other stuff you're dealing with that I don't know because this isn't my job.
Right.
And so, we're getting there, but we've got to lay the groundwork, because the other thing is, no matter what they do, if it's in our favor, has to be done in a way that it's not easily changeable by whoever's next.
And that's the key point. We
And
have to be able to make this long term, because that's exactly what the Biden administration was doing with its, Executive Order 14008, the America the Beautiful. They were changing everything long term to go out for the rest. That's what these conservation easements of perpetuity is all about. It's all about changing everything. And they were forcing us to become a collectivist society, where this is different in that we are changing this long term to ensure liberty and freedom, and the Constitution is abided by for our kids' length here. So my first experience, I was just like you. I was a little bit leery of her. I had a lot of people talking in my ear about how terrible she was, that she was this, and this is who funded her. And I was really kind of believing some of that stuff, but I'm just open-minded enough to know that people talk and gossip reigns, and so I can remember I told Jim Mundorf, my old pard at Lonesome Lands, I said, Jim, I'm going to sit down with her and talk to her. And I don't know if I spoke that into existence, but I was able to sit down at USDA and have a conversation about private property rights. And you know what? She won my heart that day, because it wasn't just that she was saying that we need to honor private property rights or we need to fight and defend them. It was how she was saying it. I said, deep inside my soul, when people are just doing the talking points, right? She knew the language, the correct terminology, and not only about our constitutional right to private property, but the language that common people were speaking. And I knew right then, I'm like, this gal isn't as bad as everybody's saying she was. And I think she was leery of me too. I mean, I think I had for sure been. I mean, I had several people tell me that I'd been blackballed at USDA, and not that I have any power, because I'm just a rancher, right? And I'm like, why would I be blackballed? Like, I'm a pretty nice guy.
Yeah.
But I did get confirmation that had happened. And then, the Lord works in mysterious ways. And I start getting these texts and calls and building relationships, and here we are. I mean, we're working. You saw her. She was on on the Lonesome Lands podcast. She directly spoke to us, and that's exciting. And it's not exciting for me as a person. It's exciting for America as citizens. That these people are talking to you, and they're not all about the power. Right. She wants to help people, and we've written letters, and she's responded, and look what she did with the mods was great. What she's doing, with the King Ranch, we've got issues all over. And, I talked to her the other day, and I said, you okay? And she goes, yeah, I'm just going 20 hours a day, and it's really hard. And I said, I get it. I'll leave you alone. So, I'm pretty excited to sit down with JD Vance and Undersecretary Vaden and President Trump one of these days too.
Yeah, you will. I know you will. Well, let me drop this so it's not distracting me. That the speed at which these people are moving. I mean, first of all, imagine being in their shoes, like you said, when you ask her. Because I asked her that one day too when she called me. I'm like, how you doing? She goes, well, I've got a New World screwworm. I've got this. I've got this. I've got this. And she goes, and I'm so blessed to be here.
Amen.
And I'm like, one of my God-given talents is empath. I feel things, from the others don't say. Sure. And it's not finely tuned, but when she said it that way, I could tell she did feel blessed to be called for that. And I'm listening to her list of things to tackle, and I'm like, oh hell, you can have it, you know. So and like you said, for her to take time and meet with the folks that are boots on the ground more than any other trade organization or lobby group,
sure,
speaks volumes for the people that we have there. So I believe they're doing everything they possibly can. If we ain't seen it yet, it's either on the list or it just can't be done yet. Maybe it's not the right time for this administration, but they're trying. Now, imagining untangling that web of, we can't pull the plug on the system we have that's got us where we're at.
Right.
We rely on it wholly to survive.
That's right.
You know,
no,
when
you're exactly right.
They announced the plant closure in Nebraska, and it was like, ugh, I mean, these guys have been controlling everything for too long, but don't quit yet. We need you.
Well, that was another example of their control. That's all that was.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
100%.
It's another example of how dangerous the centralized corporate cabal really is, AJ. And, you know, to unravel what we've allowed to take place is going to be tough. Yeah. But I believe that we have an administration that is willing to at least try. And we have people waking up thanks to influencers like you that have really educated on important parts of their life. Not everything, but there are important parts of their life that they're being educated on. So there's a gift in social media that we sometimes don't recognize. A lot of times we say it's bad, but you know what? I love Facebook because I can talk to all my old friends from 40 years ago. It's awesome, right? And so there's a place for all of this, and I just think that the Lord has played the major role in giving us another chance to bring him back into our lives and to bring respect and trust back to the Constitution. And if you'll, biblically speaking, and I'm certainly no biblical scholar, but it always takes a remnant. And I will tell you, this remnant of people, Andrea Hutchinson, Mindy Patterson, you, me, all of these other people, Jim Mundorf, Keely Cavello, I can name them, Heather Mott, I can name them, but they're compared to the population, it's a very small remnant of people that understand and see the danger of what's going on. And that is only put together by God. I mean, he's the one. And so I'm just happy to be a part of it. I'm not perfect. I'm a failure most of the time. But I love my country. And I always say when I speak to people, AJ, there's two reasons that we do this. Number one is we honor those who shed blood in the name of liberty. And number two is we have to hold freedom and liberty to value for the heirs of liberty, right? Those who come behind. So it's not us in the moment. It's those in the past and those that are coming that we're doing this for. And I think it's a very, very important it's an important job that we have.
Yeah, I agree. A friend sent this to me, and I've shared it with a few other friends because it's not mine, but it was rightly timed. It's a scripture in 2 Kings, chapter 6, 17 through 23. At the right moment, the invisible army surrounding you will be revealed to you, and then to those who oppose, and that view will blind them. To have a Secretary of Agriculture that you can send that to and know that it means something from a spiritual level, not just like, oh yeah, that's what I've learned about Brooke Rollins is and we've said it before, and I'm the first guy to tell you I'm going to fall on my face. Yeah. I'm not going to get it right 100% of the time.
Yeah.
But man, I'd sure feel good knowing that people let me be human and we're there to, support and get behind what's good.
Absolutely. And I mean, they will fail too, and they'll be angry with us and we'll be angry with them. But the realness of what they are doing is so important to recognize, because real people fail. It's not always what everybody see, it's not always what it seems, AJ.
Yeah.
No. Your friends and neighbors put on this big show, and they, drive $100,000 pickups, and they bought another ranch, and you get a little bit jealous, and then you're like, it's not what it seems. Not everything is perfect. They will fail. You will fail. That's just life, right? And so when she recognizes that, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The announcement for the public land grazing is another example of something that has never been, nobody thought would happen, and we haven't seen it executed yet, but it's part of the plan. Right. But to even have the Secretary of Agriculture and Department of Interior acknowledge returning public land grazing back to the producers and opening ground back up for livestock, like we've only lost for decades. There's never been a time where it's like, oh,
we gained.
You get them back. Never been a time. And so for them to take that on, that's just another example of something that this administration is doing. And kind of back to what you were saying with this tangled weave, it is all God designed, because you couldn't do this unless you had a cabinet that had that much interworking capacity. Mm-hmm. I mean, for Rollins and Secretary Kennedy to announce the regenerative movement and stuff they're doing for SNAP, and for Kelly Loeffler and USDA to be working together to figure out how they can better serve small businesses, which are family farms, just across the board, even the Department of War acknowledging that our food sovereignty is is national security. Absolutely. And so for them to all be working together would be the only possible way for us to untangle that tangle. And so I feel, these announcements of this, this much money for this group and this much money for this group, people get hung up like that's it. I mean, she's not even been in for a year, but so it ain't it. There's a lot more coming. And it may be a drop in the, for some of y'all may feel like it's a drop in the bucket, and it might be, but doesn't, again, that's the thing they're trying to do, and they're not going to maybe get it right all the time, but they're working their asses off for it. That's what I see.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's exciting for me. It's exciting. I'm going to participate as they wish. And, because, I'm 51 years old, and I've been at the same job for 30 years, almost 32 years. And which is ranching, and that's my livelihood. But I just feel this higher calling. Mm-hmm. I don't know, I don't know what that is, whether it's politics or, helping in an administration, or just my writing skills, what that looks like. I think it's all of it, actually. But I just have this passion of, and I tell my wife, I'm like, I have nothing to prove in the ranching industry. I've done my very best. I'm still failing, but I'm still successful in a way, Yeah. And every year is different. My dad told me that on his deathbed, that he said, Shad, you will never, ever get it right, and you'll never get it figured out. It will be a different circumstance every year. And he's been dead 15 years, and he's right. I mean, it's been something different every year. So I don't feel like I have anything to prove to anybody in my ranching life. In beef production, I enjoy what I do. I love the challenge of it, but I feel like, and maybe it's a bit of an issue of paranoia. I only have one son, and at 50 years old, he's 10, I'm 51. And so my days with him are numbered, right? And I want him to be safe and secure in what I leave him. And I'm not talking about leaving him a ranch or money in the bank. I'm talking about leaving him to enjoy the fruits of our forefathers, freedom and liberty. That's what it's about. Yeah. I don't want him to have to worry about these people coming down the street and shooting them and doing all this crazy stuff that has been let go too long now, that we've got to roll back on. And President Trump is rolling it back. That's another thing he's doing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I feel about it all. And I can remember, you've probably heard me say this before. I remember sitting on the front porch in my dad's very last days, and I said, we had like 3,000 yearlings. We were in a terrible drought. He was dying. And I knew he would die within the week. And I looked at him and I said, Dad, what do you want me to do with all your cattle? And he looked at me and he says, I don't know, I'm done. And that shocked me a bit. It took me back because he is a very, very successful cattleman. And he said, Shad, I want you to remember, he actually said two things, but one of the things he wanted me to remember that day was, he said, we will never change this nation until everybody sits in the dark, cold, and hungry. And what he was talking about was coming from a place of suffering, because he had built everything he owned from scratch. And in the 80s, he lost half of it. Mm. But that suffering is what gave him perspective and the understanding of how important it is for us to fight for what we believe in, and fight for property rights and freedom and liberty. And I'll never forget that moment.
Yeah. He's not wrong. The discomfort, and we've been too comfortable for too long. That's one thing I always ask myself as I'm working on what I'm working on is, are people cold and hungry enough yet to care that this has to shift? Or have we suffered enough yet? Exactly. Some people are. Some people, food prices are so high that they are suffering, putting food on the table. They're in that mode. So I would just wonder how much suffering before enough people wake up and say, yeah, we're going different. It is consumers driven. And that's one thing that's happened is the lack of knowledge. They've successfully separated the consumer from the producer. And so, it's the consumer that will suffer first. So, but they're the ones that turn the market. Voting with your food dollar is a real thing. But then understanding the value of that dollar and what it's receiving. Nutritional density in your food, so many people just don't think twice about. And yet that affects your life. By the time you're 50, 60, 70, you're going to look at that and say, dang, I should have put a little more effort.
I wish I wouldn't put that in my mouth. Well, I think that the one thing that you've talked about here, and it reminded me early on in this conversation, AJ, is that you have been selected to be a part of a few to bridge the gap between consumer and producer, and make it make sense and make it viable. Because what they've taught us to do, you were just talking about nutrient density, which I don't know anything about food science. I'm just a director, yeah. Right? But what the corporate cabal has done is presented us with no options, right? Yeah. This is and they've made it, they've masterminded it and manipulated it to where it affects our brain chemically, and it gets us addicted. And I mean, all of these things are super real that we talk about. And I think that is where you've been blessed, is to tell the truth and bridge that gap of knowledge between the producer and the consumer, because we have to have that bridge. If we are going to make a valiant effort at change here, we have to have that bridge of knowledge. And so I applaud you for doing that all day, every day. You've done a great job.
Well, I appreciate it. It's like I was saying when I was introducing you, it's because I've met so many folks like you that I have, because this is my job, my profession is to try to make these connections easier. It gives me the time to go out and ask the questions and meet as many people as I can to try to then distill it down for all the consumers that that's not their job. They're going to a job 9 to 5. They can't do all of that. So I'm trying to just collect as much as I can. That's how I ended up at, RCAF and not NCBA. I went to both. I didn't know anything, but I'm like, this is what this is what I wish I knew. This is what I need to know. And I feel like everybody else would like to, that doesn't come from agriculture, that has no clue what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to both meetings, and I left one going, that's the problem. And I showed up at our calf and became the member. And I was like, God,
yeah.
All they did was sell me on this stupid checkoff the whole time I was there, and I don't even have any cattle.
Well, and listen, I took some heat the other day because I said, we, as concentration started taking place, as corporate cronyism started taking hold, we sent our kids off to college with the expectation to not come home.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't profitable.
Right.
And it was, and then we sent them to these universities that have been infiltrated by ideologues and the corporate cabal in a pay-to-play scheme that is undeniably massive, right?
Yeah.
And these children learned at these learning institutions that they learned that they should go to work for the corporates.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what these institutions have become, is a place where corporate cronyism, turns your child away from their legacy and into an expectation to work for a corporation or somebody else.
Right.
And that's when we lost. And I know that sits hard with a lot of people. Listen, I went to college. I've got a 4-year degree, animal science, general agriculture degree. I didn't learn much except social skills, and I came home and I learned everything. And I'm thankful now that I did come home and spent the last 32 years here. I'm happy about that. But today, when my little boy says, Dad, in fact, just yesterday, he says, Dad, is there a blacksmith school? And I'm like, oh, I'm sure there is somewhere. He says, I think I want to be a blacksmith. And I'm like, I'm 100% behind you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, we already see that that at least showed up fairly quickly, that we went the wrong path now that we don't have tradespeople, because that's affecting everybody. So tradespeople, and then I think one of the safest bets in the future, and I don't know what length of time, is being in local level production agriculture. So small scale, multi-species, depending on where you live. Some folks are going to need the bigger ranches, but I guess my point is we are going to go through a transformation. We can't sustain the path we're on. There's already momentum going the other direction. So there is going to be some sort of transformation or turnover in our food system. Mm-hmm. How painful that is for those that are still in it to hang on for whatever that looks like, I don't know. And that could be on both sides, big side production or small side. But then when the market, when nature corrects itself because we've forsaken our food supply, and really this is just God's design saying you gave up too much control. It's time to, time to pay for it and get back on track. I think getting into agriculture is going to be a profitable venture again out of necessity. Now, how many of those folks are first generation versus multi because they could make it through or not? I have no idea, because I don't know how long that timeline will be. But I do think we're going to go through some sort of transformation that we just don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, and I will agree with you that there is a transformation coming, and we have been through some of these transformations before. Right now, in the beef industry, the biggest issue beyond the concentration is access to capital. Yeah. And that's going to dictate a lot. We are in what I call a double down period. There are people, bureaucracies in this system of governance in the United States that are against what Trump stands for and what this administration stands for. Some of them are our own peers, and they are doubling down. Yeah. And they are partnering up with these ideologues that hate liberty and freedom. They hate private property. They hate meat of any kind. And they are partnering with them. And those people are also doubling down. This administration has, if we can win the war, and this is what I call the war on beef, which is a war on the charters of freedom, and I believe we will, it's going to hurt, but the time is right now. Because, AJ, for me in the cattle industry right now, we're seeing record high prices. We're seeing a low supply. It just feels like because of the access to capital by everyday common real ranchers, that it could swing the wrong way, that this could be our hog or chicken moment. But it's going to depend on what the people tolerate and stand. I realize that when President Trump said we need to lower beef prices, it was the wrong thing to say. He shouldn't have said that. Yep. But he has both sides he's thinking about, and he now knows, I know for sure, he now knows that was a mistake. We kind of corrected that with our conversation with Secretary Rollins. It certainly feels like we have, and now the cash cattle prices are higher literally in the sale barns than they've ever been. We've swung $40 to $50 just in a 2-week period. And that's kind of the world we're living in now, right? So those are things. It's just, I guess my point here is it's a very complex system, and hopefully our support of this administration, common, everyday, true grassroots producers who must stand up and say, listen, we need reform here, we need reform there. This is what's really happening to us. This is how my life is affected away from the corporate because of the corporate as an independent producer. And hopefully they'll listen, and we can make this where we can get these people in. Listen, we talk about the checkoff all the time, right? And everybody's like, oh, a checkoff is great. Listen, in the beginning, I am a supporter of the checkoff. I believe in the checkoff. I believe it has a great merit to it. But like with everything else, when you concentrate that money and power, it becomes corrupt. And the checkoff explicitly says in the act that it is designed not only to educate, research, and promote, but to expand markets. And the one thing we have not done is expand markets. Yep. Since the checkoff beginning. There are fewer markets available to our people, to our producers, and we absolutely have cut our producers in half. Not financially, I'm talking physically in half. There are people, half of the producers that we had in 1985. And so when you have a policy like that is proclaiming one, but actually the fruit is the other way, it's fork-tongued, and that policy needs to be reformed. And
for those that don't know what the checkoff is, how would you describe that?
Well, the checkoff is a tax that cattle producers pay $1 per head every time they sell an animal, or if that animal is sold multiple times a year, that $1 per head tax goes to the federal government. They share that with the state, and that money is put in a pot to promote, educate, and research beef development. It's a really simple idea. It's a great idea if you're willing. But the problem is it has worked against what the ranchers have stood for or are wanting their future looks like. It has not promoted independent ranching. It has promoted corporate cronyism. It has not supported or uplifted market expansion. It has reduced market expansion. It's just worked the opposite. Yeah. And there needs to be reform there.
Yeah. I always like to simplify it. I say, look, if their job is the people receiving that money to then do what they're supposed to with that money, if they did their job, you can simply just ask, is the industry better off or worse since you've been receiving that? And if the answer is worse, if they can't say better or the same, which they can't, because we've seen the cattle numbers drop, which if they did their job correctly, that shouldn't have happened. So then all other arguments aside, they didn't perform. And I think that's going to change. I would be surprised if we didn't see reform on the checkoff with this administration, because
there will be reform.
Trump's a businessman, and if you're not performing in your duties, he's not going to have any patience for that. When you can expressly point it back to not just not helping them, but actively working against them.
Absolutely. I mean, it was designed to help the corporations. It's like you just said. what happens at the end? Well, I often say that. What was the fruit of it? What is the result of this?
Yep.
And listen, my dad said it was taxation without representation. He did not vote for it. I say, let us take a vote and we'll see where that goes. Now, we tried to call for a referendum on that a couple of years ago. We needed 80,000 signatures. We only got 39 or 29 or 30,000 signatures to do that. However, we have to remember, and it's kind of funny that we're talking about this because I just got a call from a gentleman who married into one of the NCBA's biggest supporting families. And he said, why do we not have these people sign this for, to call for the referendum? And I said, listen, here's the deal. Number one, we need grassroots help from people like you to get that referendum out. Number two, the majority of producers in America have 10 head or less. They are so busy out there trying to make a living that their cattle are secondary. They come home and they don't know what the checkoff is. They just pay it. Right. Yeah. And so I think that we have to educate those smaller producers because it's taking more money from them too. And so, I truly believe that in this administration, we will see checkoff reforms in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Needs to happen.
Yeah.
Well, Shad, thank you for the time.
Oh, AJ, I love you. I love talking to you. You're a good guy. You're a good man. You're a freedom fighter. And those are my kind of people. I can talk about all this stuff all day, all day long, man. I appreciate you letting me come on.
It'll be a reoccurring, I'm sure, just catching up with each other. But what is, if you, this is not a question I ask everybody, but
okay.
If you could change one thing with the magic wand, Congress need to pass it, whatever, it doesn't matter. One thing, the way our food system is currently working, what would that be?
Yeah, I'd say we have to decentralize the food system. I think we have to break up the oligarchs. I think we have to use those laws on hand to, I think Congress has to enforce that and stop with these acquisitions and mergers of mega companies, global mega companies. I think that's the first thing we have to do. And I'll say it in the words of my friend Mike Calicrate, break them up. And then we need to focus on expansion of local and regional food centers, distribution centers, whether that's packing company or, a packing plant or whatever that looks like for your community. I think we've got to, I think conservative America has to get into their rural schools and truly teach these kids the truth about their food supply and how it relates to liberty and freedom and property rights. I think we need to start feeding our children good food in schools all across the nation. And we have to get the money away from those who really are using it probably not on purpose against us, but are certainly working against us and using our own money to do that. So, my answer is multi-level, multi-dimensional, but you have to break up that power system to get power back to the people. Yeah. And, we do that by running for our local commissions, our school boards, our church, sitting on our church boards, become a commissioner, run for county treasurer. We have to do that on a local level and protect our sovereignty at the local level first, and then we can move that up. And that's the most important thing you can do right now in this instant.
Yep.
So,
amen. Okay, so folks, Shad and Jim have a podcast called Lonesome Lands. They do it weekly. And they did a great interview with Secretary Rollins about 3 or 4 episodes ago. So it was great. If you're curious to hear how, the questions they asked her and her direct answers. But Shad, where do you spend most of your time online? Facebook or Instagram?
Yeah. I'm pretty much just as old as I am. my son says Facebook is for the old people. So that's really where I'm at. I've started using X. I'm Yearlins, at Yearlins on X, and I like X a lot too, but Facebook and X are the two places.
Yeah, perfect. Well, again, it was a pleasure. We'll catch up again, and I'll see you at convention if I don't see you somewhere else.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see you before, and look forward to all things with AJ. You know, you've been a great help, and you know, one of the things that I can say about you is you always got a positive attitude, and I don't. I'm kind of a bitter old man a little bit sometimes, and I've had so many life experiences that add complexity to my life. But I truly, at the end of the day, I love this country, man. And I know you served and I didn't. So this is my way of serving the people.
Yeah. Amen. It is a mission. It is a service. I did serve, and this is more important than that. That's by far. And but it helped prepare me for, I guess, being a glutton for punishment and keeping a smile on my face.
Sure.
So
yeah, I can see
excellent.
That. You know,
Okay.
I'd like to leave with, if I can remember this poem. Would you mind?
Yeah, please. No, not at all.
And this is for you because you served. And this poem is a true story off the Mullendore Ranch in Oklahoma. And this poem is called Brody, Bill, and Sean.
Okay.
And it goes like this. My great-granddaddy hung the wagon wheel from the ceiling when he built his home. He hung it there to light up each and every meal and to serve as a sentinel of days long gone. Now that old wagon wheel had brought his family out from Franklin, Tennessee, and had rolled 1,000 miles to claim a stake on the vast West Texas prairie. And it has hung there since I was a tiny little boy. I've heard 1,000,000 stories told beneath it, stories of trying times and times of joy. Now for 50 years, 3 sets of spurs have hung from that old wheel. And I often think about them like each time I sit to eat a meal. You see, they belonged to cowboys who worked for Granddad when the war was coming on. Good cowboys you hate to lose. Their names was Brody, Bill, and Sean. And somehow Granny knew that they'd be called to serve for Uncle Sam, to go off to a faraway place and defend this sacred land. So she told them to hang their spurs from the wheel in the dining room. They'd be there when they got back, and that she hoped was soon. Now Brody's spurs were inlaid with silver in his name. Bill sported his brand, and Sean's were only plain, but as time flew by and years passed on, we never heard from them, until one by one they each showed up in a box marked U.S. government. Now those cowboys was our family. They never knew their own, so we buried them at Cottonwood Hill under a tree that still softly moans. And we knew we couldn't change what God had meant to do, but Granny promised those spurs would hang there until they walked back in the room, and they're still hanging. And sometimes I can hear their ring. It reminds me of the freedom those cowboys fought so hard to bring.
Awesome. Thank you, Shad. God bless.
God bless you. Thanks for your service, buddy.
Yep. Thank you.
All
Have a
right.
good night. We'll talk to you soon.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
In 1930, there were 6 million farms in America. Today, that number has plummeted to 1.8 million. And now 85% of the beef in America is controlled by just 4 companies. That means fewer farmers have to produce more food, thus incentivizing them to produce a high quantity of food instead of high quality food. Plus, if something goes wrong, the 98% of us that don't grow food are at risk of starving. Yikes, that's dark. Let's go darker. A few very wealthy companies have control over all the food. And if North Korea has taught us anything, a centralized food supply can accidentally or intentionally kill a lot of people. The bottom line is this: you can't wait until hits the fan to figure out what your family's going to eat. But all hope is not lost. Here's the plan. It's called From the Farm, an industry-disrupting platform that directly connects customers and local farmers with a website that's as easy to use as Airbnb. From the Farm gives you fresher, higher quality foods, strengthens communities, and helps small farmers not only survive, but thrive. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.